It is 8:13. It's a new year. That means it could be time for you to get your finances in order. But with interest rates shifting and the market doing what it does, it can just be hard to know where to even start. And joining us this morning, Matt Eilers with Medalist Wealth to help break down a few smart financial resolutions or maybe resets for 2026. Thank you for being here as always. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's start with rates because I think that was the big news coming out of 2025 into 2026. They're cutting those rates. So what does that mean for families or people at home watching right now?
I think like the biggest things that you're seeing initially here is the rates on like short-term savings are coming down. So, you know, the interest rate cut is a little bit of a double-edged sword because it's going to lower, you know, credit card interest rates, mortgage interest rates, things of that nature. But, you know, the days of having these savings vehicles that are making 4 to 5%. Are pretty much going away. You know, money markets, for example, were between 4.5% and 5% for a long time, and now those have already fallen down to about 3.5%. So what this really means for viewers is that if they were using those vehicles as a place to park, money to get a rate of return, it might be time to push the reset button and just explore, is that the best place for this type of savings? And I think it also challenges the question of how much should I have set aside in, cash vehicles like money markets or CDs or high yield savings accounts? I always kind of use the rule of thumb that somewhere between 3 to 6 months of your really mandatory living expenses is about it. And then from there, we need to go out and we need to be getting a higher rate of return. It's a balancing act when we look at where inflation is and where those rates of return were, because for quite some time, we were able to go out and get higher rates of return in these cash vehicles than what inflation was. But that story is changing now. So while we get the benefits of lower borrowing, our saving strategies probably need to be looked at again.
Interesting, and it's kind of the perfect time to do it as we enter 2026, as you're starting to think of all of those things that you want to change for the new year.
Yeah, and for people that have had their cash parked in one spot for so long, what is the risk of doing nothing with that and just leaving it there?
I think, not making enough money is far of a rate of return there to even compete with inflation. Because inflation is still out there. It's not, completely gone. So if essentially you're in a spot to where you're losing money because your dollars are not keeping pace with inflation, now all of a sudden you're going backwards when it may feel like you're even going forwards.
When we're looking at the overall picture here, let's say I'm looking at all of my accounts and I'm feeling overwhelmed. What is one thing or maybe two things that you would keep in mind as you're looking to make some moves as we enter 2026? What should we be keeping in mind?
I think it comes down to asking yourself some questions. When you look at all of your stuff, as you might have investments, you might have a retirement account, you might have cash savings. I want you to really think about, why do I own this? What is the purpose of this investment? So maybe you bought a mutual fund or a stock or a CD or whatever. What's the purpose of the investment, right? And then what has to change for me to do something different with it? So if it is something that's invested in the markets, what happens if the markets go down? Am I going to react emotionally and do something there? Or do I know if this is a long-term investment? So I look at all these things that individuals have as puzzle pieces on the table. We need to sort them out and try and put the puzzle together in regards to a plan. The key is having a plan for why you own what you own and not just buying things haphazardly.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how do you know, or how can you check if your investments are really doing what they need to be doing?
It all comes down to your goals and your risk. And I think that's where, some people can try and DIY this with Google or ChatGPT. I don't necessarily recommend that, but I say have a conversation with a professional, someone that can help you understand what your true risk tolerance is. Right? Are you someone that should be taking more lower risk or higher risk or whatever that means? In our office, we gauge that on a scale of 1 to 99, with 99 being the highest risk. So to understand what your risk number is, number one's important. And then to see, with all the things you own, are you invested accordingly? Are you in alignment with those things? Because if you're a 20 and you're invested like an 80, it might be some time to make some changes there, but it's really hard to figure that out on your own, which is why talking with a professional can be really helpful.
Absolutely. My question, I think is, let's say we have a new investor, so maybe in their 20s versus like somebody in their 50s who have been investing for years and years and years. Obviously, your recommendations are going to be different. So I guess for those new investors versus those maybe more mature investors, can you explain what you would recommend to those folks as we
Yep.
enter into the new year here?
Absolutely. Aside from risk, which is super important, goals are a big deal. So it's what are you trying to accomplish? And I always tell people, don't start with the investment first. Don't go buy a stock and then figure out what you're going to do with it. Figure out what your goals are and then let that steer you towards what are the best investment vehicles. So if you're, for example, if you're someone that's younger and you're saving for a long-term goal, you might have a little bit more of an aggressive strategy that could steer you towards individual stocks or things of that nature. Or maybe your goal is, I want to reduce debt. I want to pay off credit cards. I want to pay off student loans or any other high interest debt. You may have a completely different strategy in what we're doing there. So I would always just tell someone to pause. Don't jump into, all right, I want to buy this stock because they're talking about it on TikTok or things of that nature. But look at the goal, look at what you're trying to accomplish, and let what you're trying to accomplish steer you towards the best investment. And speaking with a professional can really help there.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there, because I do think a lot of people take like their advice from social media and they're like, oh yeah, I'll just go out and buy this.
Right.
Bitcoin I feel like is really out there on social media right now. And I think that's a really good tip that you kind of have to maybe pause, reflect, and see where you kind of want things to go.
Sure, and I think sometimes people think maybe it's too early to start. What would you say to that?
I don't think it's ever too early to start.
Or too late, right?
Yeah, that's right. My oldest son is 10 years old, and he's got an investment account where we work together, and he picks stocks. And yes, he's invested in Hershey and Nike because he did the research on that. But I don't think it's ever too early to start, especially if you have started to have that full-time career and you have options to save for retirement. Now it really comes down to making sure that you're doing the right things for your future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the future, right?
Yeah.
We want to plan long-term here, whether that be for retirement or maybe we have kids that are going through school that you're planning for college. What should we be looking on that in terms of this new year?
Yeah, I mean, whether or not you're 40 years away from retirement or 40 months away, you should have some sort of a strategy. So if you're 40 years away from retirement, just getting into the workplace, right? We have to make,
We're
right?
kind of close to it, yeah.
That's right. No, we have to make sure, though, in that case, that you have the right saving strategy. You know, how much should I be putting into my workplace retirement plan? What is too much? What is too little? And then as you get closer to retirement, understanding what should I be invested in and what is the savings rate that I should be targeting, and should we be going after Roth contributions or normal IRAs? These are all of the different things that can really come into picture that we need to have a plan for. But additionally, it's not only just us saving for ourselves, it could be saving for our children, right? Taking advantage of savings vehicles that are out there for their future, for their education, all of those different things. There are so many fantastic tools and strategies on the table right now, especially for children and young families, that we should be taking advantage of.
Yeah, I want to ask you too, because you brought up your kid and how he's invested his own money into some stocks there. What is the importance right now to maybe walk our kids through how to invest or treat money right now? Because I think it really is an important lesson. I remember growing up, my dad was a commercial banker, and so he would always tell me, we're putting this money here because of this reason. I was fortunate enough to have that education. What's the importance of that?
I think it's such a big deal that we instill some financial discipline on our children, and we work really hard to do that in our house. So we use an app called the Greenlight app, which it's an app where essentially my oldest son Jack can check off the chores that he does, and he does not get his allowance paid to him unless the chores are checked off. And then with that allowance, he can choose, all right, there's going to be X amount going to tithing, X amount going to savings for college, things of that nature. So he's starting to learn the value of the dollar and understanding what it's like to work for something. And then when he can say, hey, Dad, I got $70 in my Greenlight app, I'd like to try and invest that, then we get to have a cool conversation about, let's learn a little bit about what it's like to invest, and let's go explore what are some of the companies that you think are cool that we should look at. And that's how it really kind of led there. But I believe that once children can understand how money works, right, how you can save it, how you can spend it, how you can grow it, that they start to develop an interest. And as we know, a lot of that's just not taught in schools, So I think it's our job as parents to show them the way.
Interesting perspective. Where can people find more information for you in your office if they want to get some help?
Yeah, our website, medalistwealth.com, is always available with an abundance of videos. We have a radio show on Sunday nights. We're on a lot of different TV stations here in West Michigan, but and then always a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Yeah, Matt Eilers, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much as always. We will see you in February.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. 8:23 is your time. We're back in a moment.